So we've got the car up on quick jacks now. It is working. No problems at all after refilling the fluid. So it's up on and ready to go. So the next step is we are going to pull this transmission, and I'm going to take you through step by step on how to do that. First thing we have to do is determine where are the engine mounts on this engine. All front wheel drive transversely mounted engines and transmissions, they have usually 4 engine mounts. One of them is right here. This is the one on the passenger side. There's usually one on the rear, the front, and on the transmission side. But before we can actually see them, I'm going to take off the splash shield underneath, and I'm going to take the battery box and air box and things like that over here so we can actually see on top of the transmission, which is on the driver's side, and actually see where these mounts are so that we can determine, do we need to support this engine in the engine bay when we take the transmission out? Sometimes there are 2 of the 4 engine mounts that are directly connected to the transmission, so that wouldn't be safe to hold up just the engine by itself when you disconnect the transmission from it. I have a tool that can go across the engine bay here and hold the engine up in case that's necessary. But first we need to get things apart enough to see, do we need that additional tool to support the engine with the transmission out? And every car is different, and you got to take a look at that particular vehicle. So let's take a look at that. I already took the battery out. I did that earlier. I stopped before I went further. And you guys want to see every single step. There's a little push pin right here that's holding all this in. This must just be a play to get the battery, keep the battery cool. This is like an air duct from the car. So there seems to be just this one piece holding it in. So I pop that out. Okay, you can see somebody previously had zip tied this together, which is fine. It wasn't me, but I wouldn't have hesitated to do that. Gotta get this battery box entirely out. There's a couple of large bolts in the bottom, and there this wiring that's attached to the side that we'll need to detach. That wiring's free. So this part of the battery box actually comes off separate so the wiring can come out. So the battery cables sneak in there. That side of it now. There we go. Actually, that might have stayed with the wiring, but that's okay. So there's where the battery cables can free themselves from the box. Now we need a couple of, looks like maybe 3 13mm gunk around them here in the battery box. Get on there, get a good bite. There we go. Two, these are quite rusty, so. Last one. That one did not get stuck. Alright. There they are. Now, battery box, computer and all. Alright, see. So there's the transmission mount. It's right below here. So that right there is the transmission mount, this whole thing. This is the engine and transmission mount on the driver's side of the engine. Now if you look down there, you can also see the rear mount. So that's down there on the subframe. So I'll have to look under the car for that to see how that's attached. I don't see one on the front yet. Again, I'll get the splash shield off to take a look at that. But yeah, the transmission mount's right there. I'll remove this air box obviously to get things out of the way so we can see what we're doing. The transmission will be removed from the bottom through the wheel well. We will take the tire off. We also, all the things we did to get detached, right? So right here are the shift cables. So we will need to attach those. Anything else that's attached to the transmission, these lines, these vacuum lines, are kind of mounted to it as well. So this bracket with these lines and the shift cables will have to be removed. The axles on both sides, you can see one of them there that goes to the wheels. We'll have to take the suspension apart partially to get enough clearance to take those axles out, because those attach to the wheels, and you have to get everything disconnected from the car and the engine in order to get the transmission out. So yeah, let's head underneath. All right, well, here's the splash shield. It is not being held on very well, so when we reassemble it, that's definitely something we'll have to address to make sure over here on this side it's held on correctly. It's got most of the hardware. It's got a bolt and the two little nut things that go on, but they're not where they're supposed to be. So let's remove this. And then the ones on this side that are attached, just one it looks like. One more, of course. You can feel it, sort of see it. Alright, here we go. Nope, there is no front engine mount here. I will show you. So here is under the front here. There's the oil filter housing, the cooling fans. There is no engine mount down here. So it looks like we just have the three. Here's the transmission mount. So we've got it held. This is the transmission. So this delineation right here is between the engine and transmission, and this is a transmission mount. So we've got a transmission mount, and one engine mount. So we have two options. Number one, we can support the engine from underneath with like a jack and a piece of wood, which is going to be probably easier. Or we can use the engine bay brace, which takes a lot more time and effort. So I'm probably just going to get a jack and support the engine right here as far over as I can, and just leave it that way. That'll also enable us during installation and uninstallation to kind of tilt the engine up and down to be able to get the transmission on and off. So this, from here to here, this parting line is the transmission. We'll also have to take off the slave cylinder for the clutch. So this, when you push the clutch pedal in, this hydraulic device, you can see this arm here. This goes in and out, and that actuates the clutch. Any other wiring that we have, we'll have to disconnect that wiring. As I talked about, the axle goes to the wheel. We'll have to disconnect that. The splash shield will have to be removed so that we have some room, and anything else we can find. So let's take a look and see what we need to start disassembling. You can see how I already have the air box out completely. Here's the throttle body. Here's some of the wiring that's connected through across here, which we won't need to worry about too much as we're taking stuff through the bottom. Here's the mount. You can see there's this aluminum mount that goes between the transmission itself and this top bolt here. So that's just fine. We need to disconnect shift cables back here, so I guess I will work on that first. All right, so we can probably see those cables a little bit better now. They have a certain way that they will pop in and out of this bracket. Or squeeze together. Okay. That would be a lot easier. That should just pull out, actually. Yeah, there we go. That's how it works. You think I did this last year, I'd remember, but I don't. There. So simple. So that pulls them out of those brackets. now we also have to disconnect them from the actual shift mechanism down here. These large cables are a bit in the way. Let's move them. Squeeze that. Pop that out. Should be the same thing on the other side. There. Okay. Now these just pop on and off. Is there any other? I don't see any other mechanism for these besides just force to pop them back on and off. So let's try it. There. So yeah, it's just force. So there's one shifter cable free, so the transmission can come out. Try to put this somewhere aside. And then this one. Need some shorter pliers. These might do the trick. They're pretty flat. Hopefully they can fit in between well enough. Yep, just like that. All right, that's one thing removed. What else do we have here? There, got it. It was just about there. Okay. There, that was easy now that I have it. So that wire is free, although it is connected around that way, around that. So let's go ahead and disconnect it. Okay, and that's around there. Let's set that there for safekeeping. Moving an engine or transmission has a lot of detail work involved with it. It's not just cherry pickers and standing in the engine bay. There's a lot of detail that you gotta get done before that. So we do have a ground wire there that's loose. That could cause some problems. Make sure we tighten that once we get this back together. Now it's loose enough where I could do it by hand. I will not leave that screw out. I'll put it back where it was so I know. That is a ground for the engine harness. Very close to the computer, so that's probably very sensitive. I wonder if that could be some of the problem I'm having with the programming the key fob, getting it in programming mode. All right, slave cylinder. It's right here. So we'll need to remove a few bolts here. I see two on the bottom. It's always harder to get back together than it is to take it apart because it's under hydraulic pressure, but we'll make it happen. So these are hopefully 12. Yes, they are 12 millimeters. So it helps if you loosen them and not tighten them to get them out. And I was loosening. I was doing it. It seems like it was getting tighter. And that one's broken. So that'll be fun. That one feels a lot better. That one's better. There we go. Slave cylinder is now free from the transmission. See, that pushes that plunger does to activate the clutch. There's the clutch inside there. There's the bolt we broke off. And this will hang around. We'll push it up high. We can get out of the way. We'll get that from the top. As far as the bottom goes, we got to get this splash shield out. We'll get the tire out next, both tires and both axles. Brand new tires. Have maybe 5 miles on them now. The only wheel with all 5 of the correct lugs. I really hate these slip joint type struts. They're such a pain. So we need to get a socket for that. That's the end of the axle, and take those out. Probably need to disconnect that strut, which is a pain in the butt. I hate these slip joints. There it is. Let's see what this does. Sometimes they come right out, sometimes they don't. Perfect. So you take this strut, this bolt out, and this is supposed to slide right out, but it's usually a lot of spray lube, a lot of hammering, a lot of pain. Let's get this wheel sensor cable out of the way, shall we? See how this goes. It worked. There that is. Let's get this wheel sensor disconnected. Okay. And there it is. This is worth it. All right. Hammer time. Now, sway bar is also going to impede us. It's going to keep us from wanting to go down and move freely. However, unless these sway bar end links have a problem, I'd hate to do that because they typically don't want to come out. Then you loosen them and then you can't get them tight again. So I suppose if we do both at kind of the same time, we work a little bit on one side and the other, and we'll be good. Let's check the sway bar on this side too. While we're here, let's do easy stuff. Let's get this flash shield. Pull. There we go. Let's put that back in for now. Sorry. Put these two back in. So the point is to push this out so we can get the, we can't pull the transmission this way because the axle is in between them. So you have to pull this down to push this out so that you can get it, also pop it out of the transmission. There's going to be lots of hammering here. Nice to get a drift. That looks to be about right. So See, we're making progress. See a little distance right there. Good tool for this. It's about the right size, fit right in there. Almost like it was made for it. Don't want to hit the car in the fender though. It's loose. See that? That's what we needed. And that was a lot easier than I thought. Pulling the axle out. A little more. There. That's free. So again, the axle's out of that side. I also have to pull it out of the transmission. Likely we will get some fluid when we do that. So when I will use a pry bar that I have to pry that out of that transmission because there's a circlip inside. You just basically pry it and pop it out. Then some fluid might come out. So again, I'll have a drain pan ready. But let's kill ourselves doing the same thing on the other side first, shall we? Fun, right? All right, same thing. Get it as far away as you can. Give enough clearance. There we go. That one's out now. Now, this one also has a what I call a carrier bearing. This one's much longer than the other side, and there's a bearing kind of up there on the back of the engine block. We'll have to disconnect that, and then it should just come right out of the transmission. There's no C-clip holding it in. It's that that bearing in the back of the transmission, or sorry, in the back of the engine, and there's a solid bar going in the transmission. As soon as you disconnect this, it should just fall right out. So I realize I am going to have to drain this transmission. I'm going to have the case entirely apart, as opposed to just taking out the axle here, which you can't see because the control arm's in the way. I'm going to take out the drain plug and actually drain it. So, well, I don't own a 23mm socket, but I do have a 23mm wrench. That's really loose. That's been out before. Let's get some paper towels. Probably splash, get on the camera, you know, all that good stuff. There we go. So this slave cylinder line here is stuck underneath this cable, and I can't really get this out without taking these two bolts out and taking this entire bracket out. So I'm taking these two bolts out. I'm going to get this bracket. There we go. That's our slave cylinder. Line snakes here. Goes to the ABS unit, like I worked on my last video. And it has the same reservoir as the brake fluid reservoir, so it uses the same fluid there. So this is now very much out of the way. Yeah, we're pretty much good to go on top here to start disconnecting bolts. Let's go back underneath and see if that fluid's done draining. Yeah, fluid's all done. There's quite a bit in there. It's good. So it's a healthy amount. So I will put the drain plug back in and we'll remove that axle next. Okay, that's good. All right, to pop this axle out, we're going to take our pry bar, it looks like this, put it behind here, and pry. Not always the easiest thing to do. There. See how it came free? I gotta kind of work it here a little bit. There. Here it comes. There is the axle. It's out. That's one of the two axles. All right, so here is this, what I call a carrier bearing for this axle. So it's actually held here by 3 bolts, right connected to the engine block. And there's 1 bolt here. Can't see it very well probably. There's 1 bolt there, 1 bolt on top, 1 bolt on the side there as a triangle. So some people leave this one in the car, and when you put the transmission in, there's one more thing you have to line up, which is okay, but it's not that hard to remove this side. Easy saying earlier from the strut, right? But I just remove it. You can leave it in this side and just aim properly, but with everything else you got going on the transmission pan, just to get it on the input shaft, and when you put it back on, this is just one more thing that's in the way. So I've always preferred to remove it. So there's one of the 3 bolts. Okay, there's 2 more. Top one and a side one. 3rd bolt, it's not going to follow me. The whole subframe control arm is in the way. Plus I have to pull it out of the transmission, so it's not going anywhere. It might slip a little bit as soon as I take this bolt out, but not very far. But you can see now, I'll rotate this. Here was this piece that held, that still does. It's a bearing here. This thing spins with the wheels. That's what that cast iron piece bolts right to the aluminum engine block there. So I'm now going to pull this out of the transmission. See, no clip, just comes right out. There we go. So I will now get out from under the car and slide this the rest of the way out. Which I guess I don't need to do, but I will. There is the passenger side axle. Much bigger because the transmission's on the driver's side of the engine, or driver's side of the car, so this axle needs to be much longer. Set this aside. Boot's still good. All right, we're ready to support the engine. Here's where we support the engine with a block of wood and a jack. We don't want to use a jack directly because that's aluminum on aluminum. We don't want to scrape it all up and damage it, even though it's not a stamped steel pan, it's aluminum, but we still want to try to be nice to it. I also have some rubber pieces that came with my quick jacks, but I wanted to use something more common that I think more people will do for this video. So just took a block of wood here. It's probably gonna fall off as I jack it up. Let me just get it up there. I have my quick jacks at the lower level, not the upper level, even though that might be hard to get the transmission out from under, but at least my jack will be able to reach this. So I'll get a little more tension, just have it solid there. Okay, put it a little more in the wheel well so I can lift it up a little higher and not have it stick out in the garage so much. So we have the engine supported here. Again, the transmission engine line is here. So we will take out all these bolts, and well, the engine mounts first. We'll take out the 2 engine mounts. The one that's in the back right behind there holds the transmission, and the one up top. And then we'll be able to take out the transmission bolts and we'll drop this transmission down. There are several bolts that hold this mount in. This is kind of the main one that goes to the subframe. There are 3 other ones you can't see. This one, and there's a top one here. And I want to remove all of those and remove this massive one. So 3 of them I could get with an impact, 1 of them I couldn't. I'm gonna try the first one. So they're 19. Yep, big guys, 19 millimeter. Get that back on there. Make sure I'm on there solid. And get as much of a throw as I can. There's one loose. Here's 2. Try to get some of the pipe on here. Okay, 2. Okay, those are the 3 main, and we got the through bolt. The through bolt like that, we're probably talking the impact there. That'll reach. Let me see if I can get a 17, or what's on that impact now. It's already got a 17 on it. Fits right on it, here we go. Like butter. So that was what's connecting this mount to the car. So that's no longer there. So we're going to now, to make it easier, we're gonna loosen these guys. Loosen the other 3, take the other 3 out, take this mount entirely out, because again, we can't move in or out of the engine bay with this here. We could slide down, but this is a very tall piece. It's gonna get in the way a lot, so it's gonna make our lives 1,000 times easier to remove the mount from the transmission. And then when we get it back in, that'll be fun. We gotta take the transmission sideways out, and this is gonna hinder us from doing that. You know, the transmission bolts are tight and the engine mount's tight above, so this is not going anywhere on me. This is still perfectly safe. When I take the engine mount out above, I'll have a jack under this. So when I take the transmission out, I'll lower it on a jack slowly. I'll have a jack under it, and then I'll slowly lower the jack. There's the 3 bolts. Here is this transmission mount piece. Hopefully we can take it out. There it is. That is the transmission mount. So that was one of the pieces that held the engine and transmission in the car, and helps it from wobbling back and forth basically, and rotating this way and back. So that's free. Now we could take this apart if we wanted to. I think we will. And the reason being, when we lower this, have this out, this is one less thing to get in our way. And that's a 17. I'll leave all these mount bolts here by the mount, which I'll push back a little bit away from. Let's take this out just to get some room. No problem. There's that mount, actually. Still in good shape. Don't see any major problems with it. I'll stick the bolt through it so we know where it goes. Now we have that much more clearance with which to move around to get this transmission out. So, all right, we're getting down to the wire here. We're getting down to pulling this out. Sweet. All right, here's my second jack. Really close to the other one, but this is what will enable an easy removal of that transmission. Now, I want to be in the center of it as much as possible. However, with that other jack there, I'm having a hard time getting far enough. So I'm going to change my position on that other jack. I'm going to scoot it back a little bit. I'm gonna have to do it quite a bit. I'm gonna flip that piece of wood over sideways, and I'm gonna go on the lower part of that oil pan to get that jack back a little further, because I can't get close enough to the transmission. I'm way on the tip of it, and it's not gonna be centered. I can't get the jack where I want it. So let's lower this. So now I can do that. Pull back. A little edge right there. That's a nice ring on this jacket. It's very interesting. All right, I need to move so I can get some leverage. That's better. Try to guess where the center of gravity is on it. Yeah, there's no perfect spot. There's still a lot of transmission back behind here. I mean, the center is kind of here, but between those two tabs of where the drain plug is, I'm going to make the decision to go there. Again, it's a judgment call. You just look at the transmission here, and you just try to see where do you think the center of gravity is. And just from experience, going through this, that's my guess. So that's where it's going to be. So let's get that top mount off. All right, now it's time to deal with this side engine mount or transmission mount. So I'm going to take this bolt out, and there are 3 bolts. There's a bolt here, and there's 2 long studs. The first one I'm going to do is this one. I don't know if this is the right size. This might be bigger than 17. Nope, it's not 17. So here it comes. Again, we've got the engine and transmission supported with jacks. So they shouldn't move a whole lot. They'll probably move a little bit though. Let's find out. Here we go. And that's a big boy. Get stuck a little bit. Drop on the ground, comes right up. Alright. So there is that guy. Now also, I think what I did before to kind of see better was to remove this mount, this entire deal. Which I've got right socket here as well. So this will kind of clear the way so I can get to those underlying bolts better. One. That one I'll need an extension for. Come on. That was a little tougher. Let's get the extension for these. Another pretty tough one. It gets a little warm. Sticks in there a little bit, it expands. Okay. And then there's 2 10s. My lighter duty impact should work for those. Let me move this aside. Need extension for that. Right with the rest of the items that belong together. Dismount. Oops. There. Now, this side. Check out what we've got. So here's this entire mounting bracket for that mount. So let's move this out of the way. The other one's the same. It's got a star tip on it, but it's just inside of this. Oh, all right. Well, that solves that problem. So this mount, we've got 1, 2, 3 bolts. 2 of them are studs with a star end, and one of them is just a bolt. Since I'll see if I have some sort of long socket that might work for those. If I don't, I'll have to use the star. So see, I've got an adapter there. Let's see what she'll do. Thought I saw it turning, but all right, power. Excellent. I really didn't think that was coming out. There's what we've got. It's a stud, and it's seized on there, which you'd expect at this point after 15 years. All right, let's try the other one that's kind of hidden. You can't see it that well. I can't see it that well. So that nut came off. See how it's smoking there? It's gonna be a little warm. I'm gonna use towel. There we go. Set it down. Now that stud's still there, but that's okay. This, once I get that last one off, the last bolt out, it will it'll lift right off of that stud. Now we still want to might take it out. We'll see if it causes problems with clearance of the transmission, or with the with the frame rail of the car when we take it out. But let's get this last one out. And again, now, after this, we've got the two jacks basically supporting the engine from falling out this side. We've still got that mount there, but this side would fall this way if we didn't have this properly supported. It is now free on this side. Okay, I'll leave that bolt in there. So here is that transmission mount that connects to that mount on the side. Still left that bolt in there. I can go ahead and put this back. And I've got that nut here. It's still hot. I'm going to try to leave that there. We've got the whole shifter mechanism that's in the way as well. I'm not going to try to remove that here. All right, well now it's time to take all of the bolts and hold the transmission onto the engine off. And let me give you a little bit better peek. So we've got all of them around the bell housing. We've got two up here, and they're going to go all the way around in a big circle in the transmission. So we've got to do all of them. There's actually two over there in the back behind where the starter is. They'll have to take off from the other side. Not all of them go in, this way. Some of them come back the other way too. So let me take you through each one. All right, so we are to what I think are probably going to be the hardest bolts in the transmission. This one's not so bad. So we are underneath. This is the back of the oil pan here. This is the oil drain plug, if you can see it. No, you can't. It's right over there. There's the oil drain plug. So again, we've got the oil pan and the transmission here. We've got to disconnect all the bolts that hold the engine to the transmission. So there's one here, and there's two more. There's one there and up there. And those we might have to get from the top, and those might have to be ratcheting wrenches because there's not really a lot of clearance between here and the exhaust. I don't really have to take this exhaust off at all. So we will remove this one first and then see how we can get to those. So these appear to all be 14. Got a 14 wrench ready. That's correct. Yep. All right, so we got that one loose. There are, I don't know how many bolts, but they're all around the bell housing. So it's a big circle where the clutch is inside of the transmission, where it attaches to the engine and the flywheel. And you've got to remove all those bolts so that you can free it. There's one. The other two I do not have the tools for right now, but let me go and see how easy it is to reach from the top. Let's see, there's the top one. I can reach it. Let's see if I can loosen it. The only regular 14 I have is a short one, and then I've got another 15. I'm going to use the wrench trick on the end if I have enough clearance. It's moving. Oh man. You know when you hear that sound, it's really tight. Alright, I'm going to reset my 14. I'm going to reset my 15 on it. Okay. Here we go. There. It's loose. Keep going on that one. Now the problem may be we may not be able to get this out at all. This exhaust might be completely in the way. Well, I discovered I don't have a 14, but I do have a 9/16 with an angle on it, and this swivels, but it was getting too much out of the way. It would actually hold the bolt and turn it, the one that I already loosened, but the angle was getting bad, so I decided to duct tape that, and that seems pretty solid. That's about the angle that I need, so hopefully that'll help me make things go much more quickly. We shall see right now. Success! Just using this, with the duct tape to help kind of keep it from moving around too much. I got that top one out. Now, I got the bottom one, which I may not be able to get out all the way like this. It may just slide out and kind of be loose there next to that exhaust manifold piece. Because otherwise I gotta take the entire exhaust manifold off the head. And that's compounded by the fact I can't get the heat shield off so that I can get to the exhaust manifold bolts. So let's hope I can get the bottom bolt out enough to at least get it free. So we'll see here. After much struggle, I was able to get that other one out. I didn't get it, like I said, I didn't get it all the way out. I was able to use the wrench trick. I got this little shorty 14 boxed in on the end. And I got this one, I got it loose, and it took a lot of effort. And there was a lot of noise involved, but yeah, I got that one loose. And then, like the other one, I used this 9/16 to get it the rest of the way loose. Hit the rest by hand. It's just kind of jingling around in that hole. It can't come all the way out, but that's just great. So now we're ready for the rest of the transmission bolts. Top ones, there's a couple on the bottom, and the starter bolts. So let's get to that. Alright, so here's the next bolt I'm going to get out. Just loosen it up, take it up by hand. Here's another one. Make sure I'm on there all the way. There's another one. There's another one right under here. That's going to be interesting. Down further, I can't get much leverage just going that way. Should be able to use this. There's another one. We already got the one immediately in the back. We got the ones, two on the back there. Now we're going on the top, I think. Well, it's been about a week since the last video. I haven't had a lot of time to work on this, but now I have. The only things I've got done off camera is I removed the starter and one of the bolts off the top right here on this. So the starter, it's really hard to see, and there's other videos online you can find to help you with that. So I would recommend those. But for now, I think I just have two more bolts here at the top. I think I have this bolt, and this transmission is ready to come off. So let's get ourselves an extension and let's get this done. So once this thing gets loose, it shouldn't fall off or anything, right? It's been on there a very long time. So we'll have to work it off of there quite a bit. Kind of jiggle it around, move up and down in the jack, get it free, and then we'll lower it down in the jack and try to take it outside the car without it off the jack. We might just have to slide it carefully off the jack onto the floor though, depending on how we are. Worst comes to worst, we can always use the quick jacks and raise the car a little bit more while we slowly do that a little bit, raise the jack in the engine, do that a little bit, raise the jack in the engine, things like that. So we shall see. So I got my cheater pipe and my 14 long extension. We've got two more bolts. I believe. Once we actually try to loosen the transmission, we'll see if we have anything else left. That's tightening. There we go. There's one. There we go. So those are the last two. So now, we should be able to drop stuff off of our cowl and then add more stuff to it. Alright, let's see. It looks like a good pry point right here. It appears to be. Nope. Still very tight there. And the bolt's gone there. The starter's out. Bolt's gone above it. Alright, so the jack's just kind of barely there. Now it's not going to just pop off and fall off. If it is, it'll make for a great video, but that shouldn't happen. It should just, there's nothing else bolting it there, it's just tension. And we'll try to hammer on the other side if I can reach it very well. I sort of can, it's really close to the jack. Well, the next method is kind of the most brute force method. Notice I have the jack gone, and I've done this before in the past. It's been a while, but for a transmission that's that stuck, I'm basically going to get under there and kind of bench press it and jiggle it around and do my best to free it. It's not all that heavy. If I have to take it off my chest and slide out from under the car and kind of slide it off my chest, it's not something that I've not done before. But my expectation is, if I can get it loose, I'll just get it loose. I'll let it hang again, and I'll come back out and I'll get the jack. But I don't really see any other way besides doing a bunch of jiggling and rotating to see what we can do. So I can lift up on the back a little bit to get some more leverage, just kind of jiggle it around and see what I can do. Got some good leverage on these two parts I'm holding. I feel a little bit. I feel something. Yeah, I think one side's starting to come off. You can hear that a little bit, can't you? Aha! The bolt. There it is. I hear it moving from the back, but not there. I missed it because it was right next to the clutch. That bolt. There we go. So, let's go back. Safety. It was right there in the shadow of the camera. Let's go back to this point that I was talking about before. It was just outside of that kind of guard for the drain plug. All right. With the clutch there, I don't know if I'm going to be able to get a socket there, so that looks like it's going to be a wrench and a wrench trick. Like this and this. All the way on there. There it is. There we go. That's why it's not coming loose. I don't remember bolt. And this is probably the longest one, so when I take this out, I'll set this with the others, but it will be obviously the longest one. I got four more right there. There we go. Now, it might come out a little easier. Three bolts really close together there. 1, 2, 3. Usually in cars, I don't have that many bolts that close together. Hey, look at that. It comes apart when you have all the bolts out. So I will loosen it, and it is free. So the input shaft goes in a little bit, so we have to pull it free of that. There's the flywheel. I'll hold this, try to steady it. This splash shield's not helping me very much, but we'll work with it. All right, well, it's out. Let's start lowering it. It's kind of back heavy from where I had it. Okay, steady there. Coming down by itself. The jack. There we go. We got it. That's it. That is our transmission. There's our input shaft. Somebody's put this on here before. It's not the first time. 177,000 miles, 171,000 miles. That's probably fine. We got our throw out bearing. I was like, what is that word again? It sounds like throw up. Yeah, that's right. Throw out bearing. There's a clutch and flywheel. We don't plan on touching that at all. So now we'll get this out from under the car and we'll put it on our bench. Not so bad. a little unwieldy. Let's see if we can fit it out from under here. We won't be able to, so I'm going to carefully sit it down. There we go. So that concludes this step-by-step on how to remove a manual transmission from a first generation Mazda 3. In the next video, we will tear down this transmission on the bench, inspect third gear and other parts, and determine what the next steps will be to get this working properly. Thanks for watching, and make sure to subscribe for the next update coming soon.